Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dig into commentator Dan Peña's pretty provocative theory on the rise of Donald Trump. And according to him, it's not really about politics. It's about a deep-seated crisis in our culture.
Okay, so this quote right here, it's basically the key to Peña's entire argument. He's saying that to even begin to understand the appeal of a figure like Trump, you first have to get that a huge chunk of the public is just, well, they've had enough of the way things are.
So what's really behind all this frustration? According to Peña, it all stems from a global crisis of self-worth. It's a pretty bold diagnosis, and it goes way beyond your typical political analysis.
Now, Peña's take on political correctness is, well, it's really different. He argues it's got nothing to do with being polite or inclusive. Nope. For him, it's the #1 symptom of this widespread lack of self-esteem. Basically, a culture that's become too afraid to speak its mind.
And this fear, Peña says, it creates a vacuum. You see, when a society is running on low self-esteem, the public gets desperate for a leader who just completely shatters that mold. Someone who operates with what he calls a limitless mindset.
And that, right there, brings us to the main character in Peña's whole analysis. So let's explore how this diagnosis shows up in the specific appeal of Donald Trump.
Peña frames this as a huge cultural battle. On one side, you've got limitless action, acting without being afraid of what people think, which he sees as the ultimate sign of high self-esteem. And on the other side, political correctness, being totally constrained by that exact same fear. He says this is the fundamental conflict that Trump tapped right into.
So the crucial thing to get here isn't about policy. It's all about the persona. Peña just boils Trump's appeal down to these core things. He says supporters see someone who acts without limits, the kind of guy you'd want next to you in a fight. And if he's not always telling the truth, well, Peña's claim is that his supporters don't give a shit, because for them, it's a small price to pay for a leader they see as strong.
So based on this whole persona, Peña doesn't just look backwards, he makes a really bold prediction about Trump's potential impact on the entire globe.
And to show you what he means by rocking the planet, Peña brings up this anecdote about Vladimir Putin. He argues that this kind of direct, unfiltered style, it actually earns respect from other strong leaders. It just cuts through all the political horseshit, as he calls it, and completely changes the game of international relations.
For Peña, this isn't just a political shift, a few new policies here and there. This is a fundamental change in how global power actually works. The prediction is that this type of leadership wouldn't just change things in the US, it would send shockwaves through the entire international order.
But, and this is key, Peña argues that this hunger for some kind of radical change, it isn't just on one side of the political aisle. He sees it as a much bigger signal from the culture itself. In fact, Peña points to Bernie Sanders as the other side of this exact same coin. I mean, think about it, polar opposite beliefs, right? But he sees them both as outsiders who represented a massive break from their party establishments. The real insight here is that both of their campaigns were fueled by a similar rejection of the norm, which suggests people weren't just mad at one party, they were mad at the whole system.
The success of both of these very different figures proves one thing, at least in his analysis. The American public is just fundamentally unhappy with the status quo. They're demanding a huge shift. And honestly, the details of that shift seem less important than the change itself.
So all of this leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought from Peña's perspective. He argues that what happens in American politics often ripples out across the world. So if this deep dissatisfaction and this desire for a planet-rocking leader is real in the US, what does that signal about the future of leadership on the world stage?